$700 a year. I get it. Nobody wants to deal with Medicare, but in under 20 minutes, Chapter can review your options. If your plan is already the best for 2026, great, you're done. If not, they will help you switch before arriving.
Quibble with some of what your previous guest said is a significant liability for Joe Biden. Like, there is a story here. We've told some of it. There's more to be told. We're going to continue to sort of pull that back. That said, the way that Rudy is inserting himself into it is both not helpful, I think, to Rudy and to Trump, because it kind of jumbles it. He's getting the facts wrong, and he is making it appear as if this is just a partisan hit job. Whereas if he would just kind of leave the reporters to do the work on it, I think that, potentially this story might be taken more seriously.
Well, that went over like a lead balloon with Team Biden. In fact, just 2 days later, they put out a digital ad featuring pundits attacking Vogel by name. Watch. Trump invited foreign interference in our election in 2016, and he's doing it again. Will media see through Trump's sleazy playbook
Ken Vogel
or fall for it
said
again?
is false. It's not simply whataboutism or equalism. It's false. And when he does that, and when, for example, Politico has a whole bunch of headlines today doing the same thing, they need to be taken on. They need to be taken on by the candidates and responsible people in the media.
The New York Times is obsessed. It may market itself as part of the resistance. It's obsessed with kind of being right down in the middle. With this Ukraine story, a lot of people say, well, this is just like
Some Media Matters
2016, and the press hasn't learned anything. At some point, we have to ask if a lot of journalists don't want to learn anything.
That was the Biden campaign that put that out. They could not have the story being told about the Biden family corruption over in Ukraine. And it turns out there is more of the story to be told, and Ken Vogel is telling it in his new book titled Devil's Advocates, the hidden story of Rudy Giuliani, Hunter Biden, and the Washington insiders on the payrolls of corrupt foreign interests. The book hits stores on October 14th. You can pre-order it right now. And Ken joins me today for an exclusive interview. Ken, welcome to the show.
Fucking around with
it's great to be with you, Megan.
This software
This is crazy. I read
a few
this,
hours. I meant to be on at like 3 o'clock.
I don't care.
And
I
it
don't.
just dragged on and
have
on
never
and on
run cover
forever.
for Rudy Giuliani or
Anyhow,
anybody else who may have their hand in the till, and I certainly haven't for Hunter Biden. So I applaud you for writing this book. Can you just first set it up why this is an area that is just so
not
ripe
right. I didn't really know what the hell I was doing, I guess, so.
by foreign governments trying to find some, weakling here connected to whatever president. Could be a right-wing one, could be a left-wing one.
That you could do that
for exploitation to try to gain access to power.
So we'll see what we can.
Yeah, there's this sort of mindset in a lot of the developing world, really a lot of the rest of the world that...
Yeah, I never heard of the raid stuff until now, or until today. It's kind of interesting, and then also, I don't know. I guess I just didn't have the idea of what live streaming is supposed to be. I thought it was like a watch party where we all just join in, like good old friends in the living room and enjoy a movie. When no, that's not the case at all. And I get, it makes sense. It actually makes sense. Why would somebody come to watch me when they can go watch the video? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not for the video that they're, maybe it is in a kind of a byproduct, like a byproduct of that. I just didn't realize it, honestly. But,
Ani, but also many others who I profile in detail in the book.
Yeah, this is a grift because you have some access to power and you run around to deep-pocketed foreigners touting it, trying to seem important, like you can change policy. And certainly when you are the son of the sitting vice president, that carries a lot of weight because what you're zeroing in on with Hunter really all started when Joe Biden was vice president. That's when he joined the board of Burisma in Ukraine. Before we get to that, I just want to start with a headline that just came out on Tuesday, thanks to our pal John Solomon over at Just the News. And the headline is, Joe Biden's team blocked the CIA from distributing report on son Hunter's Ukraine.
I swear.
Former FBI Director James Comey getting dragged through
Certain
the same process.
stuff, I'm not feeling it right now. Like,
He's not guilty in his first court appearance. The charges obstruction.
I'm okay with a
making
little
false
bit of
statements to
news,
Congress
but
back in
man, I guess I
2020.
just like
The trial's locked in
overdid
for
it.
Jan 6th, the day before that.
Or I guess I just really overdid the whole news
and the
thing
media is
because
already acting like it's the second coming of Watergate.
normally I watch news every day. I watch, the talking heads and what have you, but after streaming it for a week, I'm like, God, I just want to watch anything but the news.
Directed that one of his opponents be prosecuted because he didn't like that individual.
This is an effort by the president to use the power of the federal government to muzzle somebody he doesn't like. The
This is
legal case
such
is simply a way
bullcrap,
to get Jim Comey to shut up.
These guys are
to
great,
get
Jesse.
Jim
Isn't
Comey
the
to
whole
shut
point of
up,
this really,
like,
it's not really the conviction, it's the process.
I get
which many innocent Republicans, and
that,
I'll even throw Martha Stewart, had to go through because
Democrats
of that
are
guy's ambition.
scared.
So maybe he should
They're
go through the
scared
process he put
because
everybody else
to
through.
their or leftists, they're scared because their guy's not in charge right now. They don't have anybody in charge. They don't have any power whatsoever. So they're worried that bad things are going to happen. I know that feeling. I remember when Obama was in office. Yeah, the shit sucked. Because almost every time you heard news, like, after like a year, it was like, when you heard news, you were like Pavlov's dog. You were trained to know that it was going to be negative for you. So anytime I saw news for Obama, I'm like, man, this is bullshit. So as soon as I would see like a news flash for Obama, I'd be like, man, this fucking guy, what did he do again? So I get that. And I had no faith in the guy. I would have never voted for the asshole. So I get not having any faith in him. But it's like, just because you don't have faith that somebody's going to do a good job doesn't mean that you're going to, that you automatically assume that they're going to fuck it up. Because, that's kind of the feel, that's why if I can't watch The View, which nobody can watch The View, but any typical show about politics, people they get so bent out of like they refuse to see things as a positive. It just seems like a downright refusal. They have no faith in Donald Trump, so therefore anything that happens, it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing, and it can't be good. And it's just, I just think it's kind of ridiculous for people to not look at things objectively. You can't just look at it as if you were from another country and say, gee, that's going to be good for those people. Like they automatically revert to like ridiculous reasons for why things aren't going to work. And it's every single time that anybody asks any sort of a Democrat pundit, like especially a Cenk Uygur, that guy, he is a psychopath. His entire show, it should be called the fortune teller, Cenk the fortune teller hour, or Cenk the soothsayer hour, because this dude literally, anything that comes out like news, what he doesn't say, oh, that this is a good thing or this is a bad thing. He says, oh, well then this is going to happen. Yeah, this is going to happen, and then everybody's going to die, and everything's going to come crashing down. And it's like, bro, none of that has happened yet. Somebody just came out with an announcement. Like, what in the fuck are you talking about, man? He does it I really can't stand his show because it is all skeptics. It's all him telling his audience what to expect in the future from whatever's happened. And year after year, the guy is totally wrong. Because I guess he must have like Republican politics mapped out for like how George Bush always was, or how other people always were. But Donald Trump is not George Bush, not even close. We all know this. He's not even close. And even I'm shocked, like not in a bad way, but like his ideas and his way of going about things it's you can't understand or see what's going to happen from a news flash of Trump's. Like, he plays the long game. Like, and it's legit, because he'll have an idea to do something, and the first step of that idea is dropping misinformation, or dropping news that will prime us, that will prime the country into, you know, it will prime them, so when he drops the next bit of news, it colors their reaction, it colors their opinion, because of the last thing he just said. You know, what do they call it a term, but it's like, you know, getting your foot in the door, or when you like they would say to get gifts for Christmas or something, you ask your parents for something ridiculous, so that way when you ask for what you really want, they're like, oh, geez, okay, yeah, we can do that. But whereas if you had just asked for what you wanted from the beginning, you would have not gotten it. You know, and that's like, that's the way I see Trump. That's what he does. Is he primes that shit to freak people out, and then he comes behind it with what he really wants to do. And it really softens the blow. And some of the things he's done, I would have never thought that people would have reacted the way they did. You know, it would, you know, I've never seen a politician do that stuff, the foot in the door thing, or, you know, these different tricks, you know, they're mental tricks that he's using, or persuasive tricks. That's what he's doing. And it seems like no other politician ever has done that stuff. Because it took me a while to even recognize what he was doing. You know, like the Canada thing, you know, talking about Canada and Denmark. Like, that stuff, it's shock value. It's absolute shock value. And, you know, and it's also a misdirection thing, whereas he throws stuff like that out, and you know how his enemies, they're like dogs, you know, chasing the postman. You know, it's like he throws a little decoy out, and they go right for it. They're so knee jerk reflexive to that they just go for it, and it's kind of ridiculous, because you would think, you know, that we live in an adult world, you know, where, you know, if somebody like Donald Trump can think to throw out decoys, wouldn't it make sense for his enemies to be able to spot the decoys at some point? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they straight up fall for it every time. They're like bowling pins. He like sets them up ever so nicely, and then bam, strike. You know, just comes through with this gnarly one. It's usually like a 1-2 punch, I want to say, and I really like it. I mean, I really like it. Well, naturally, I really like it, but it's just nice to see what I would call a smooth operator, somebody who knows what the hell they're doing. You know, because it seems to me like all the people that we've had in the past, they didn't know what they were doing or something. They would just ham-handedly come out in the open and do things so everybody could see. No clever, ingenious ways of doing it. You know, nothing. Just out in the open, stupid, like George Bush or. George Bush, pretty much. I mean, even Obama was like that. You know, he really. I'm not going to say stupid. I'm not going to say George Bush is stupid, but they didn't. The way they went about things was so much more upfront. And like Trump, I guess he must have realized you got to get clever with these people. Like, if you want to beat them, you have to get clever with them, because they're not that clever. They're not that clever. You know, like not Jasmine Girl. AOC, Miss Cortez, I saw her talking about laughing at, you know, when these men, these Republican men with their small wee-wees, you know, when they come around and they start, and they say this and that, you know, laugh at them. Just laugh at them, you know. Laugh at them. And she said Steve Miller was like, she thinks he's 4'11". Well, the blowback from her saying that caused her to come back onto Instagram and say how much she loves short kings. And then went on to try to explain what she was trying to do. And she says, I mean, it's absolutely freaking hilarious. Or hold it. Wait a second. Yeah, I mean, it kind of, God damn it. It's just ridiculous. She comes on and she says, yeah, Steve Miller, you know, I wasn't making fun of short guys. I was trying to say that even, you know, that even though guys are short, you know, they can still make up with that from the inside. And then she goes on to say, Andrew Tate, that guy, like, I don't know how tall he is, but in my mind, that guy is like 5'3". And I had to laugh out loud. Like, how absolutely stupid can you be to say something like that? Again, that's like, she doesn't realize that when you're making fun of, or when you say, yeah, I'm making fun of this guy, and then you turn around and say he's 5'3", what are people to take from that? That you're making fun of him by calling him 5'3", as if it's something to be ashamed of. Man, go fuck yourself, whoever the hell you are. These sons of bitches and their stupid chat stuff. Oh my! I swear, it's like never ending. Just one chat after another. But you know, I just couldn't believe AOC did that. And even by the end of the video, she was like, am I still saying something problematic here? And it's just like, yeah, you're a moron. And people think this woman is going to be the president one day. God help us. God help us. That's all I can say about that. God help us. If we voted that woman into office, man, this country deserves what it gets at that point. I mean, because it's outrageous. Like, I'm gonna show. Honestly, I'm gonna show you that this shit she was saying the other day, or on Instagram. It's incredible. Like, are you this stupid?
You guys, you need to know, she's lost. Okay. She had this crazy thing with her husband, where he said she was abusive toward him, and was like, controlled whether or not he could have a phone, and was verbally abusive
God, that
to
would
him,
be
and,
so
like,
creepy if a woman tried to tell me if I could have a phone.
The lady seems to have
yeah, that would be over really quick.
Problem.
That would be
So
a really fast,
here is
really
the
quick
interview,
relationship.
that went round the world. We're going to air these 3.5
Telling
minutes.
me
You can see for yourselves how it went.
Yeah, which, like, I'm wondering here on Trovo,
of California voters who you'll need in order
what's
to
going
win,
on there,
who
Vancho?
voted for Trump.
Jack in the 15.
Well,
Oh,
you
yeah,
think
that
you're
was the
gonna
guy
get
that said that bullshit.
60% of the vote. You think you'll get 60%?
Juana 54, Sylvester 80. These sound like straight up bot names, man. I'm not even gonna bullshit. Those sound like bot names to me.
I don't intend that to be the case. So how do you not intend that to be the case?
This woman is an idiot right here.
No, I'm saying
She's
I'm
an
going to build the
absolute
support. I have the
moron.
support already in terms of name recognition.
Okay, I'm going to pull up
and so
this
I'm going to do the very
AOC.
best I can
I'll
to
pull
make
up
sure
this
that we get this
AOC
primary
thing
in a
on
really strong
X.
position. But let me be clear with you. I
Because it's
represented
just too
Orange County.
funny.
I represented a purple area.
It's too-
I have
oh,
stood on
here
my
it
own
is.
2 feet and
Beautiful.
won
Beautiful.
Republicans before.
Got
That's
it.
not something every candidate in this race can say. If you're from a deep blue area, if you're from
Damn it.
LA or you're from Oakland, you don't have an experience.
You just said you don't need those Trump voters.
Well, you asked me if I needed them
Why
to win.
can't I see them separately?
don't
I
think
I feel like this
don't
is
want to
unnecessarily
see.
argumentative. What is your question?
My love. The question is the same thing I asked
Yeah, she had to
everybody.
express
Does
her
this mean
love
that
for the
all
short
the
king
empowering the
community.
voters to stop Trump's
Like,
power
what the
grab? Every other
fuck?
candidate has answered this question. This is not.
It's
I
ridiculous.
support it.
So, and the question is, what do you say to the
Come on
40%
now.
of voters who voted for Trump?
Oh, I'm happy to say that. It's the do you need them to win part that I don't understand. I'm happy to answer the question as you have it written, and I'll answer it.
And we've also asked the other candidates, do you think you need any of those 40% of California voters to win? And you're saying, no, you don't.
No, I'm saying I'm going to try to win every vote I can. And what I'm saying to you is that
Well, to those voters, okay.
Oh, God.
So you.
Stephen Miller is a clown. I've never seen that guy in real life, but he looks like he's like 4'10", and he looks like he is angry about the fact that he's 4'10", and he looks like he is so mad that he is 4'10", that he's taken that anger out
This is the first video.
any other population possible. Like,
I can't even believe that
laugh at
somebody
them. Laugh at them. Yes, they are
could
dangerous.
possibly think
A white
that.
patron at a local restaurant
How
calls a
could you
black patron
possibly
the
think
N-word.
that?
The woman
That's
who
so stupid. Like, you know, that was her first deal. That was her first response. Okay.
Stephen Miller is a clown. I've never seen that guy in real life, but he looks like. I want to express my love for the short king community. Laugh at them. Stephen Miller is a clown.
God
I've
damn.
never seen that. I want to express my love.
Why is it that everything has to be stitched together? Everything has to be fucking tied together? Why can't people just leave the fucking videos alone? Seriously. Like, every video has to be a little mashup of that particular streamer or account owner, a little mashup of their favorite fucking, you know, public flubs or whatever you want to call it. You know, it's just, it's like people can't allow everybody else to imbibe things in a raw form.
I want to express
Here it is.
my love for the short king community. Laugh at them. Stephen
Dude.
Miller is a clown.
Wow. Like, what the fuck, man? I'm wondering, every single one of them is like that. This is crazy. AOC short king Paul. Come on. Okay. Jesus fucking Christ. I don't know. This is fucking annoying, man. I mean, right there already, I'm like really fucking discouraged. Like, I don't know. Let's see. Let's see what's going on. We'll watch some of the Young Turks, and you tell me if this guy says anything that isn't speculation. Honestly. Let's see here. Let's see if they have one with fucking Cenk on there. Hold it. Alright, here we go.
BB's running around. This is a fact. I'm not guessing about it.
Man, there's everything on the internet today is just chopped up. Everybody's chasing each other. Everybody's copying each other's fucking thumbnails. Everybody's AI doing everything, and it's just starting to get to the point where I'm like, the dead internet theory is for sure real. You know, that, I mean, it's a fact, because there's like nothing out there that's real. They're all clips. You know, YouTube at one point you could actually watch a whole fucking show uninterrupted. Now it's got to be clipped 1,000 fucking times. I don't get it. Why do people think, like, me myself, I don't like watching fucking the little bits that people want me to watch. Oh wow, it's members only now. Okay, perfect. This is live. Perfect. Even better. Even better. Sweet. Sweet. Perfect.
What? And did you notice who she blamed there? Why didn't you ask Alex Acosta?
I would love to.
This guy, I could do a show on this guy, and I would love to do a show with just this guy.
President Trump. Why don't you ask Alex
Man. It would be just an insane rant, though. That's the issue. I would just be ranting.
well, photos of Trump in Epstein's possession. Take a look at that.
There's been public reporting that Jeffrey Epstein showed people photos of
what do you
President
mean?
Trump with half-naked
Clog
young
up.
women. Do you know if the FBI found those
Yeah, I know,
photographs?
man. The whole clipping, all that shit, like, it's pretty much ruined everything.
Or otherwise.
Like, what the fuck, man? There's
Senator
nothing,
Whitehouse, you sit here and make salacious
nothing whole.
remarks, once again trying to slander President Trump.
And you guys know, my thing is
when you're the one who was taking
I
money
like watching
from
long form
Epstein's
content.
closest
I like,
I believe, I could be wrong, correct
you know,
me,
when,
Reid Hoffman,
I guess it's not that I like focusing, but I like when I watch something that's gripping enough to hold my focus.
the flight logs from being released. Yeah,
You know, she has a point here.
on President Trump and
These scumbags
with Epstein.
are trying to hold her feet to the fire and grind her into dust when they, just 2 years ago, wouldn't let anybody see anything.
Well, this is such a nonsense way of handling a situation in which a man, along with his disgusting groomer recruiter girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, who Trump was asked about pardoning again yesterday, and he's like, I have to look at it. You have to look at it? You have to look at it?
Yeah. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with having to look at it? You know, maybe dude doesn't want to make a butch. You know, it's easier
Don't even bring up that
to not say dumb shit and then have to clean it up later. It's easier to say, you know what, let me get back to you on that. Did you ever see Anna Kasparian bitch at Jen Psaki for saying she's going to circle back?
I thought there were no clients, Pam. Okay.
Who cares? Reid Hoffman too. I don't care.
We don't care at all.
I do agree with them on some things. I do. I'm not going to lie.
Files are running the government. I want to know how many powerful people.
You know, I don't agree with them on much, but, you know, most of the time I agree with them on who the scumbags are. I would say that.
That's what I want.
I finally got my boom mic working.
I'm not just covering up
That worked out.
Republicans who are on Epstein's list. I'm also
I
covering
was
up
tired of this
Democrats who are on Epstein's
bullshit
list. You must be so
headphone
proud,
No one
one.
asked for it.
Yeah, well.
Well, the perverts probably.
there is one organization that asked
The
for it.
perverts.
Anyways, you mentioned the Howard Lutnick.
Why is this?
Interestingly, a twist, video B5 here, Senator John Kennedy, a Republican, also asked about Lutnick. Let's watch.
Yeah, what's wrong with Lutnick?
Commerce Secretary Lutnick goes on to say, quote, that's what his MO was. You know, get a massage. And what happened in that massage room, I assume, was a video.
Yeah, the whole story is,
This guy
it does,
was the greatest blackmailer ever.
I like to make up my own mind.
That's how he had money, end quote.
I don't want to,
Is that true?
I don't want somebody else to make up my mind for me. That's what it is.
Uncover evidence.
And that's what people are doing when they chop shit up.
As well as
They're not allowing you to make up your own mind. Anybody that listens to what a fucking celebrity has to say is allowing that celebrity to think for them. You got to realize that. If you listen to anything Taylor Swift says, you're letting that dumb bitch think for you. And that goes with anybody. That goes with Donald Trump. If you just go with what he says, that means you're letting that dude think for you. That's just stupid. That's not how one should carry themselves in this world. It'll be a rough life, for sure.
Well-known and widespread perverts, pedophiles, sexual predators on the planet. And oh God, these people.
You hear, like, what should Pam Bondi do? Should she just go in there and say, fuck Jeffrey Epstein, he's such a cocksucking piece of shit motherfucker, blah, blah. Is that what she should do? Just go in there guns a-blazing and just so she lets everybody know how she feels about this piece of shit, scummy, like, grow the fuck up, you know? I mean, Anna Kasparian, I used to think, she's not honest, but she's at least sincere. But, you know, I've lost... I don't see very much value in sincerity if you're a fucking ignorant moron. You know, I mean, the worst things that have ever been carried out in human history were through sincerity. People who sincerely thought they were right, or sincerely thought they were doing the right thing. It's horseshit, you know? Like you should never be that sure of yourself. That's the problem that I have with the Young Turks and all of the whole left. That is my problem with the left. Is they're so cock fucking sure. You know, the whole reason why the left and the progressives even were able to make changes is because conservatives or people with a Western way of thinking, you know, understand that they could be wrong. You could be wrong. So, you know, it makes sense, you know, to try different things out. And the whole reason why we have these leftist policies is because conservatives didn't say, no, this is the way it's going to be. We know best. This is the way it's always been, and that's the way it's always going to be. We don't give a shit what you have to say. We know best. No, that wasn't how it went. You know, I mean, that's not how it went. You know, we don't know if there are better things out there or better ways of doing things. So, and you have to try to get to that point. But the whole left, that's not the way they think. That's not the way they think. And when they take in information, they have a filter in front at the front of the sluice. And they just offload all of the shit. They don't even want to see anything that would disprove their hypothesis, or that would throw any shade on it, that would cause them to have to go back to the fucking chalkboard and figure it out, you know, and see where they went wrong. You know, go back and show their work, or go back through their work and figure out where... No. See, they know best. Humans know best. Didn't you know? Humans know best. They're perfect. You see? They're perfect. They went to college, don't you know?
Very clear.
You'd better listen. They went to college.
Have to be so, like, in the bag for the Trump administration to just completely ignore what's
The age of consent. I mean, I don't even see that. To me, age, that's not even relevant, you know? My older brother was playing with motherfucking G.I. Joes into his 20s, man. So, you know, like, don't tell me, like, age is not a relevant factor, really.
Criminal cases was Pam Bondi 101. She works completely for the donors. In fact, she was going to do an investigation of Donald Trump's charity. Trump donated to her. She immediately dropped the case. But it's not just about Trump. There's a million stories just like that. Pam Bondi isn't the Attorney General despite corruption. She's the Attorney General because of corruption. Because she's so wedded to corruption.
Really?
All right,
no evidence for that? No evidence. Not even going to attempt to back up his claim. That's why I fucking hate this guy. I fucking hate him. And you know, he does talk to Republicans, and he does reach out and have them on his show, but the fact that he jumps to conclusions like that, and it totally destroys any feeling that I had for him, or any affinity I have with him, because he can't control his emotions. The guy will go into these insane, like, cartoonish rages. And let's be honest, he looks weird as fuck as it is. You know, this fucking weird-looking Turk. He looks weird, and then he goes into these rages, and it just reminds me of a toad. He reminds me of a fucking toad. Or just any, like a meme, like a toad or a meme or something. It blows my mind. The guy's a wacko. And Anna, she's just become even more of a wacko.
What am I reading, you ask? Well, just one of the best-selling books on Amazon right now. With millions of sales and almost 20,000 five-star reviews, this book has been absolutely blowing up, especially on TikTok, or Book Talk, as the kids call it. Thousands and thousands of women in particular have been raving about this piece of literature.
Wow.
What piece of literature is it, you may ask? Well,
Moon Priestess?
Morning
What the
Glory
fuck is
Milking Fall,
Moon
of course.
Priestess?
A popular romance novel about a young woman down on her luck who does what every young woman does when facing financial struggle.
Oh, did somebody
She
just
starts an OnlyFans. No, I'm just kidding. She wouldn't degrade herself like that. She gets a job jerking off monsters.
That's right, the Morning Glory Milking Farm.
Yeah, these books are like fucked up, and that's what women read now. Like they talk shit about guys watching porn,
I am a fucking raccoon.
and then they fucking literally watch
Get your eyeballs
or,
on
or
this,
read
because
books
it's so good.
about like milking werewolves and shit.
I regret to inform you that there is a new epidemic. An
Like-
epidemic that many have yet to discuss. And that epidemic...
Like I don't even know what to say to that.
Now, for those of you unaware,
It's really weird,
mooner
too.
is internet slang for someone addicted to porn. And
Yeah.
smut is slang for
Porn.
dark romance novels, otherwise known as porn. Many correct about the dangers of porn addiction with men.
This is
how
really
it can
gross.
destroy their lives and their relationships.
remember-
And most men know the material they consume is weird. That is why they
Exactly,
are ashamed of
and
it. That
it
is why
has
they
nothing to
delete
do
their
with
browsing
fairies
history.
and
That is why they go
goblins and shit.
incognito
That
mode.
to
But these
me,
freaks
that's like
out here. They display their smut openly in bookstores.
Like,
they proudly pose in
whoa.
front of their smut collections. They discuss their smut openly on TikTok. They go to smut conventions
Dude,
and get choked out
look
by
at
9-foot
this.
tall shirtless
Look at
wendigos.
this.
Now I know what you are thinking. Shoo, isn't this the pot calling the kettle?
No,
generous?
no, it's not.
Yes. Yes, it is.
No,
But
no, it
consider,
isn't.
It takes one to truly know one. You see, women are strange, fascinating creatures. For
Golly, this is
centuries, men
creepy,
have
man.
tried to figure us
This
out.
is
Our moon is
such-
affected by the
so
tides of the
creepy.
moon. We bleed
Who,
for 5
who
days and
hopped
don't
into the
die.
Twitch
By
stream
painting
here,
my face,
hmm?
I can instantly shapeshift
somebody
from
else
a
in
4
here?
to a 6. We are truly mysterious.
Who's that? Say hi.
magical creatures. But one of the most
Say what's
mysterious
up, man.
aspects of women
Shout you out.
is our
dude.
sexuality. You see, us women are not like those disgusting moids. No, we
Well,
are
welcome anyhow.
sophisticated. We are evolved. We don't watch videos of strangers slapping their sweaty bodies together. No, we read about
That's really
strangers
fucking
slapping their sweaty bodies together. It's different, okay? You don't
Am I not
understand.
merciful?
It's okay when we do it. So, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the rapidly growing popularity of dark romance on TikTok and the recent dark romance convention that ended in disaster.
Man, I got off to a really
Let's take a
shitty
break
start
from
with
all
this stream. That was
depressing
awful.
political news and talk about something silly. Not that those
Ooh,
political things
ooh,
They're in the win.
what?
Or they married somebody, whatever.
What?
So, like, it was
Holy
an
shit,
act of
they have
Congress for me to get an
Myron Gaines
NTA
on-
for someone that I
on
needed for a
Rumble
criminal
right
investigation.
now. What the
They
shit?
were giving these guys like fucking candy under the Biden administration. Just so the American people understand the
Whoa.
significance of an NTA.
Exactly. I mean, there's an
What the
extremely
fuck?
complicated, convoluted, intense
Why is
process
this
for
not?
enforcing the law. But for breaking the law, it can be done easily, and that's what
Yeah.
the left has done for decades. They can bring as many of them over as they want, and then you try to send any of them back, and they go, "You're not following the proper procedures." Like proper
Okay.
procedures?
Yeah, you didn't follow
What?
it to get
There-
them.
What are you talking about? Proper procedures? You just imported tens of millions of people
the shit is-
outside of congressional approval, outside of the approval of people in the United States, because you just didn't enforce the law.
Speaking of proper procedures, we should move to the next thing. Before we do, real quick, I just want to say the marriage fraud thing.
I don't understand why
when we
it's
made
doing
no-fault
this shit.
divorce a thing, they brought that up. They were like, people are going to do a bunch of marriage fraud. And I would just like to ride or die for
What in the hell?
no-fault divorce back, baby. Marriage should be real. Do it or don't.
I was gonna say,
Because it's the
Easiest path to a green card.
No,
That's
yeah,
why.
it is. It's
That's
crazy.
by far
Like,
the easiest way.
Marriage should destroy your life if it goes bad. Okay? Straight up. It should be a big deal. Like, you guys aren't actually married. You're just dating with consequences. You're, what do we want to call it? Pussies? I don't know. Anyway,
I'm Catholic married, so I'm super married.
base.
Yeah, dude. So,
Oh,
in
my
any
goodness.
case, we got a video about Trump
Wow.
classifying Antifa. So let's see the president of these United States talk.
Wow.
As the Secretary of State's here, are you going to work with your administration to designate it a
finally.
foreign
What
terror
kind of
organization?
bullshit?
You mean Antifa?
Wait a sec.
Well, has that
Oh.
been done?
Pretty close, right? Would you like to see it done?
Yes, Mr. President.
Do you think it would help?
They have foreign
I'd be
links
glad
all
to do
across
it. I
Western
think it's the
Europe.
kind of thing I'd like to do.
But,
If you'd like, does everybody agree?
so
If you agree, I agree.
So
Let's get it done.
unbranded.
Okay, let's get it
Do
done.
you guys like it?
Marco,
All right, we'll do it.
we'll take care of
Fuck
it.
yeah.
It's international, you mean?
Trump is. I mean, dude, he is a fucking comedian. Dude, just
October 7th.
kills it.
1,200 killed in Israel. 46 Americans. 200.
Dude, that was 2 fucking years ago.
Here's the #1 biggest scam at the shooting range.
I can't even believe
They
that
know
they're
your scope
still
isn't zero.
playing those
I think
like.
that would be a very valid step to take.
Good, I think so too.
Yes.
Good, I think it's
Still
a
playing that
good
dumb
point.
shit.
Thank you.
He runs like a business, right?
Hey, you know what? That's a W, and I'll tell you guys this why that's super important. If you designate them as a FTO, now you can start using intelligence services on them. How do you guys think we're fucking up these drug cartels right now? Because now we're using the Department of War, aka Department of Defense, because once you designate them as a terrorist, a foreign terrorist organization, now the intel community is involved. You could bring in the military. Things change the game. Like when I was on the job, for
What's up
example,
there, Clemens?
you know,
Or
when I was doing,
Clemens? How
my
you doing,
investigation of
man?
drug cartels, we were kind of limited in what we could do, right? We had
What's
some
shaking, my
resources and
dude?
stuff like that, but you couldn't really use intelligence agencies or in your investigation, and if you did, you couldn't use it. Like you couldn't use it in a criminal case. So like it could help you like find some stuff, but like you have to parallel reconstruct everything. So if you got a phone number here, you'd be like, oh man, I can't use the number. I got to parallel reconstruct this.
Hell yeah.
So you're able to use it that way. But now if you designate them as a FTO, dude, like the amount of resources you get using intelligence agencies to collect on these things make it way easier. So I'm glad that he's doing this. I've been saying for damn near 5 years now at this point that Antifa should have been a terrorist organization a long time ago. So BLM too.
By the way, that was the plot of Sicario 2.
Got it.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
They just start blowing
I didn't
people
watch
up in one shot.
Sicario, too.
Except
Yeah.
for in
That movie was a
Sicario.
little sensationalized, but
Yeah, in
freaking
Sicario
amazing.
2, it's like the CIA and some like grunts on the ground. In real life, it's the United States Navy just one-shotting dudes all over the place, like blowing people
All
up.
these
Yeah.
dumbasses
And that's
in
because they
cigarette
designated
boats
them.
getting
Once they designated them as a terrorist
blown
organization,
to
a foreign terrorist
smithereens.
organization,
It's
boom,
awesome.
gloves are off. We can start killing these guys
freaking
now, which is
awesome.
what they're doing with the Venezuelan drug traffickers.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that's gonna go. That's interesting. I feel like if Israel wasn't a thing, we'd be on the ground in Venezuela already.
Yeah, probably.
Like if
Probably.
that wasn't a thorn in his side, and he didn't have to like attack Yemen and Iran, and because everyone's like, "Weren't you the president of peace?" So he kind of tied his own hands. Now he can't go into Venezuela and
Yeah, and Marco Rubio's had a hard on for Venezuela for a long time. He wants to go in there.
have it their oil. You know, their access to the trading partner to fix things would be huge for us, and it would. We're trying to get over here on the global West. You know, we're trying not to buy Russian oil. We're trying not to do this and that.
Well, you'll appreciate this as a Catholic. I mean, our whole entire foreign policy establishment is structured on a total subversion of subsidiarity. Like, instead of caring about the things closest to us and handling those, we're going all the way across the world to try to solve problems there that we're never going to be able to solve, and then we're letting everything here fall apart.
Yeah, it's a real problem. It's insane. I
Yeah,
don't
well,
like
we've been
it, and
doing
I
that
want it to
since,
stop.
Vietnam.
So let's see what this next story is.
That's
Florida
what I would
man
say.
charged with intentionally setting Pacific Palisades fire in L.A. It's about time.
Does Florida man mean like Maryland man? Is this actually a guy who's
Good
born in
point.
Florida?
I mean, Florida Man is its own thing.
I
You
think
look up your
Florida
birth date and type in Florida
Well,
Man.
it gets
and see
better.
what
This
story-
guy
is
was an
funny.
angry Uber driver.
That is
basically.
fucking
way. If
funny.
And he listened to a French song before he did it. I was reading a criminal complaint. The ATF agent, this is an ATF case. ATF is running it out of Central District of California. And, you know, it's funny when you read these affidavits sometimes. And, like, the guy literally, I guess he had listened to this French song, which boils down to, like, burning things down. And he had listened to this song, getting himself hyped up, and he was an Uber driver. And, like, a couple of the Uber people that he had driven went to the Fed saying, yeah, this guy was a little agitated. We think he might be onto something here.
Oh, my God.
I'm actually
That's
just
how it
kind of
came up,
impressed that
yeah.
anybody went and turned him in. Like, we live in an age where, like, I just assume everyone's like, not my business. I got out of the car without it blowing up. It's fine.
If he was inspired by a French song, I'm surprised he didn't turn himself
Let me find
in.
it. I'll tell
Do
you
we
guys
have a
right now.
photo of him? Jonathan Rinderknecht?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a French dude.
Rinder,
He's French?
That's
Oh, there he is.
That
Look at
explains a lot.
There he is.
Oh, man.
That's ironic. A French song about burning stuff is super funny to me.
He looks like he lives in L.A.
So they went through his YouTube, right? So
Saying
Damn.
that degeneratively.
I meant that.
I read through the affidavit. They went through his YouTube. The name of the song is listen to a song entitled Un Zeder Un The by French artist Jasmine.
Jasmine.
Now that musician's gonna have to be like, I do not.
If she's
We're gonna
a
have to
lefty,
take down the
maybe not.
music video.
She'll be like, yeah, burn it all down.
Yeah, guy grew up in France, fluent in French, and he was an Uber driver.
Got sick of tipping
So
culture in
get
America.
more immigrants. We got to get these freaking frogs out of our country, you guys.
Actually, this is the story you point
Get
to now,
these
and somebody's like, "You
frogs
just
out of our
hate
country.
like brown people." You're like, "Actually, no. I saw this French
No,
guy.
dude.
This is what happens. It doesn't matter what color you are. If you didn't come here legally, we don't want you burning down our buildings. We don't want you starting fires out in the woods."
You're
dude.
okay with people who are born here having campfires?
Yes.
So you're not actually anti-fire at all.
No.
That's the thing they do. I've joked about this before, but like a migrant could harpoon a dolphin at SeaWorld and they'd be like, oh, so fishing's only okay when white people do it. They'll reach for any little similarity between two completely different things and then like try to shame you for not supporting the most awful version of it when it was done by an immigrant.
Yeah, it's stupid. We need to get these French people out of here acting like
fun fact
baguettes.
about
French
so
people?
a lot of people.
What's
Another
wrong with
reason why I
French
think
people?
our system is broken. So countries like France, Canada, obviously they have visa waivers. They don't have to come here with visas. Dude, they overstay all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
overstay
dated a
all the
girl
time, and
who
they work
That's
here
fine.
legally.
They're
They get
allowed to
They
overstay.
also because people think, oh, it's just like
Live.
Mexicans and people from poor countries that are coming.
Get her.
Like,
Get her.
You know,
She's in New York. You could get her right now.
you know, everyone thinks it's like, oh yeah, these guys just come from the third world and abuse our system. It's like, no, dude, people come from these like, first world socialist countries
the
like
thing
Canada,
is, though, is the
Australia,
people that
France,
come from those
etc. Come here all the time,
companies
overstay
typically aren't
their
robbing us
non-visa,
blind.
their
That's
visa
the
waiver.
thing.
Yeah.
And they just work here illegally and they just hang out.
So
And they have enough money that they're not in these places where they're getting seen. They're not in the back of kitchens.
Exactly.
It's the
Yeah, we have a
same
lot of that.
thing
Yeah,
as
there's
Trump's
a ton on the
talking
East
about
Coast
with
right
this
now
gold
of just
card,
like
the
rich
America
Indian
gold
immigrants.
card.
Yeah, and they're not prioritized
That's
either.
that's what they're talking about
They
right here.
basically drive
America
drive
has
into
always
the country
been
from
this
Canada,
way.
and they just have
If
so
you've
much
got the
money that they
dinero,
like rent apartments and
you
live
can come
life, but they
here.
just
Nobody's
just
gonna bust
overstay
your
their visa.
balls.
But they kind of like fly under the radar because
Yeah.
they're rich home, so they're rich here.
Yep.
It's a
Or the other
wow.
scam they do is like they'll go to the
That's a
Bahamas
lot
and
of
then come
gang
back.
members, man.
Right?
Yeah.
That's another one that they do all the time too. So like, dude, we're getting beat
what's
on so
going
many
on there,
different. We need
Brandon?
an immigration moratorium
What it
for
do,
like 5 to
baby?
10 years. If I want to be honest, if we're really gonna fix this problem, we need to reform everything because we're not just getting beat. People
Say
everything.
hi, my
Oh, it's just
dude."
Mexicans and people coming in from the third world. No, bro. People are coming in from the first world as well and beating us in many different ways.
Somebody right now who's been wanting to complain about immigration but doesn't want to get called racist. Like, see what I mean?
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is fantastic. Get
Yeah.
rid of the French people.
H-1B visa. That's another big scam.
Oh yeah,
Huge scam.
You got to get rid of that.
I
Yeah, the
appreciate you
H-1B
saying
is
all
some
of this
crooked
because
shit.
there's a lot of conservatives and even like normie conservatives who will recognize this. If you tell someone they can't leave their child an inheritance, if you have an inheritance tax, that disincentivizes them from working hard to build up wealth to leave to their children. Well, guess what? If you
When
don't
you
have the
tell
understanding
people-
that you're going to be able to leave the country you live in to your
Yeah, when you tell people that they're not going to be able to leave their money to their kids, you think they're going to die with a penny in the fucking bank? You'd be out of your fucking mind, to think that. And I mean, my shit would bounce if that was the deal. If the government was like, yeah, we're going to take a big fat slice out of your ass as soon as you kick the bucket. Although it really doesn't matter at that point because you're dead. But still, though, it's so crooked. Like the government, they've exhausted all of the normal, typical, accepted ways of squeezing a population. And every time they talk about death taxes and these different, it's just like these really underhanded and slimy, grimy ways for them to take our money even more. Or like the capital gains tax. That's or no, what was it? It was pre-capital gains where they taxed you on your possessions and on money that you had. It's like, well then why would anybody own stocks if they would have to pay taxes on those stocks every year, even though they haven't gained anything because you don't make money until you cash out. And that stupid bitch Harris, Miss Harris, she was actually floating that. Like, you realize that our entire economy, like, that's a really big piece of our economy. You start taxing people, like, before they cash in, and the whole thing collapses.
children instead of unlimited immigrants, you're probably not going to build as prosperous a nation.
Yeah. That makes
depends.
perfect sense.
Depends on the
It's
immigrants.
just, it's common sense. Whenever people are like, oh, you don't like brown people, it's like, I keep saying America's for Americans. What don't you understand about that?
Right?
Americans are all colors. I'll freak out. I will. I'll freak out and headbutt you. Not you specifically, but the person I'm hypothetically arguing with that I didn't actually have a real argument with in person. But
You owned him, dude.
Oh, I
Got
did.
him.
Yeah. Full forehead to the face, dude. He never saw it coming.
And those people, like the people who are having that discussion with you, haven't actually paid close enough attention to what's going on with immigration now, where the average person still wants to think of what this country would have been like in the 70s and the 80s when the people who did immigrate here,
they were Mexicans,
with full support of everybody because they believed in American values, they believed in what America stood for, they came here to be Americans, and
like
that was
the
something
only
that we
country
celebrated.
in
And I
the
think
world
for at least for me, that's something that I would
that
still
allows
like when you look at
or
who the
allowed
most
people to
successful immigrant groups are in this country. I don't like it's never going to bother me, and I understand the point. Moratorium. If the point is that you have a lot of stuff that you have to figure.
Yeah, that's the point. Is right now it's a moratorium. We just had 20 million walk over our border. Like, you got to get those guys under control or sorted out and organized. It doesn't even matter if you kick them out, but you at least have to sort them before you can let other people in. I mean, like, even that's terrible, but let's say you did want to destroy the country, you'd continue doing what the Democrats did and open the border, but you wouldn't put your own kids at risk, stuff like that. Like, you just leave it wide open and let people come and stay. It's I want to say it's a safety issue more than it is anything else. I mean, people get tired of hearing that girls are being strangled to death
has been exploited.
by
and
Mexicans.
I think we're at a point now where it's like we need to reform everything, our visa system, our green card system, everything. And we just need to, stop with immigration for a bit to fix everything. And then the other problem, too, is like people don't come here, right, to assimilate. They come here to bring their bullshit culture in here. They don't want to assimilate. They want to bring all their weird third world stuff with them. And this is a problem, right?
No,
it used to be people come here
that.
And they assimilate. They don't do that anymore.
Well, you got to earn
it. They've never done that.
To a degree, actually.
They've never done that.
To a degree, but past waves of immigration massively reshaped our country.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I hear these lefties going, well, your ancestors came here. It's like, hold on. You're constantly complaining that a bunch of Catholics were able to make abortion illegal in the United States. That's because of Irish immigration, bro.
Yeah.
That didn't just fall from the sky. And not just Irish, but Polish and Italian, a lot of Catholic immigrants came
Germans
at the turn of the century, and I'm very glad about that. But as it turns out, I don't want anyone from any part in the world coming to our country to spread any random ideology. And one more thing, they'll bring up the Italians. It's like, yeah, can you imagine if the Italians came to the United States and didn't totally assimilate, and they started doing this thing in America where they had like feuding families that broke the law and killed each other?
And they had an empire in the desert, and they made hundreds of millions of dollars and started affecting politics and got involved in the assassination of a president. Can you imagine? Can you imagine these immigrants being up to stuff?
Well, and the other thing too, I think America needs to just understand is like if we don't fix this, we're gonna be like Canada.
Pretty
in
much.
Canada, you go to
Pretty
Toronto,
much.
you think you're in India, bro. It's like
Brampton is
what's going
India?
on?
I thought Brampton was India, but
yeah.
Yeah, it strikes me that when I watch stuff like this, these people, honestly, they really and truly, they don't realize that all this stuff has happened before. All of these conversations have been had before, and they've been had by smarter people that were more informed, that were just better people. All of like these conversations, it's ridiculous. Like, as if, I mean, people, they act like they're the first ones to ever speak these sentiments.
It's like, and if you want to lose your country, then cool. Like, let's just let more people in and be super woke and be like Canada and the UK.
A lot of people. Like, there's a lot of weaponized empathy in this country. There's a lot of suicide.
And they say it's a melting pot. That melting pot bullshit. That nobody talked about melting pots until like the 60s. Somebody came up with that stupid idea. This isn't a melting pot culture. That's not what it is. You come here. You come from India, whatever. Really, it's more like a salad bowl. That's why we have a Chinatown. That's why we have Little Havana. That's why we have little San Juan, Little Haiti. It's like a salad bowl. These people, they build their little ghettos, their little enclaves. They live there. They stay out of everybody's way. They do their own thing. They keep their culture. Or the other alternative is you can let go, you can jettison your own culture and marry an American woman or an American man and take on that culture. But one way or the other, you're going to have to find your place in America, whether or not it's whether or not you melt into the pot or you sit, in the salad. It is what it is.
I was gonna say I would call it suicidal.
The politicians use weaponized empathy on
Yes.
you, and that has instinctually given a lot of people a certain level of suicide.
I'll give you another example. Like when I was on the Southwest border, right? I was in Laredo, I've been in McAllen, I've been in El Paso, like all these different places on the Southwest border. You don't feel like you're in America. No one speaks English. You go to the bathroom there. Like in Mexico, they don't have like plumbing, so like everyone takes their wipes their ass and puts it in the little wastebasket.
Yeah.
They don't flush it. Like all the wastebaskets are filled with shit thing. But that's an example of what I mean, where people come to the country, even though they're in America, they forget, I'm in America. They don't learn the language, they don't assimilate, they bring their stupid customs with them. So that's an example of what I mean, where like if we continue with this in this trajectory, this will not look like America anymore. And if you don't believe me, you want to get a taste of what it's like, go to the Southwest Texas, go to Southern California, and you'll see people don't speak English. If you feel like you're in Mexico, dude.
Dude, and this is so funny to kind of go back to like the soft conservatives. They'll acknowledge, all of those people coming from California are going to come to my state, and then they're going to completely change the culture and make it liberal. But then they're like, well, as long as the immigrant comes here legally, it's fine. It's like the guy from California came there legally too, but you recognize that someone coming from a different place with different values isn't good for you and your family.
Yeah.
And like in measured numbers, again,
They don't
in
want
principle,
Republicans,
it can be great,
but
like, in
Mexicans
practice,
come right on
especially what's
in.
happened right now, no, it's not working.
And before long, Bad Bunny's doing the Super Bowl for you.
Dude.
Yeah, and
learn Spanish if
Like,
you want
he's
to
a
enjoy
fucking
the
Puerto
Super
Rican.
Bowl.
That's the thing that kills me. It's like, bro, you're an American. Like you have our
speak
passport.
English, dummy.
Like
Yeah.
you need to speak English. And it's like, this is what I'm trying to say. Like this is
The
the
thing
goal
is,
that
though,
people have,
is
right? Like where it's like, no,
Puerto
you're gonna learn my
Ricans
language,
purposely
whatever. It's like, no, dude. Like we
fuck
need to go
off
back
in
to telling
school
people, like,
so they don't learn
we need
this.
to bring racism back.
I mean, they're all taught
I
English.
hate
They
to
are
say
literally
we're still on the main show, so I'll chill.
all
But
taught English.
We need to bring racism back.
The point is, like, before the lady who,
But
she did the
only
national
a
anthem
small
before,
percentage
I
of them
don't remember
actually
what
learn
it
it.
was, and she
There are
did
many
in
Puerto
Spanish.
Ricans
She
that
said, "I
speak
felt like I needed
zero
to."
English.
If you were an American,
But
and you
even
went
though
to
they went
Spain
through
and
English
did
throughout their
their
entire
national
school career.
anthem in English, how would they feel about that? Would they have a right to do so? They're going to tell you, yes, they do.
that's
But they're
Borat.
going
Yo,
to
what's
tell
up?
you that you do not.
Remember when Borat went
New
and
to
sang
the
the
chat.
national anthem of Kazakhstan in
What's up, my
English to the
dude?
tune of Star Spangled
Say
Banner
hey.
and everyone started booing him?
Say
Yeah,
what's
that
up,
sucks.
man.
That's
Let
what
us-
you're
let us-
doing.
let
You're
us see you.
Borat, lady. Boo! You suck.
Well, that's what I'm
Boo.
arguing. It's not that we need to bring racism back. It's there's so many things that have been called racism that aren't. Like wanting someone to speak your language.
That's
not
the
racist,
thing.
That's a
No,
normal
okay.
instinct.
That's the
So
thing
I speak
is-
English if you're in the United States, dude. You'll hear about people.
As
it's
everybody
this
said,
poor man, he was deported after 20
These
years.
sons of
and he
bitch. There's too many people in that on that cast. There's too many people. But that's the thing about the all this horse shit is they have made racist this umbrella term that just it covers. If you say anything negative to somebody who looks different than you, you're racist. You're racist. It doesn't matter if it was a constructive criticism. If you were saying, hey, that was really dangerous how you pulled your car into that parking spot. Stop doing that. Or, you could hurt somebody. Racist! Racist! And people don't give a shit anymore. And they're like, fuck you. And people just come out with how they feel. And, good on them because it's fucking bullshit. The way they pull this shit. Calling everybody under the sun racist. It's like back in the day there were like you could say people were racist because they didn't know anybody from any other race and they just they didn't want to know them. So they talk shit about them, and then you hear this all the time, stories about people that thought black people were subhuman, let's say, and until they were forced to hang out with black people, or I seen this. There was a movie with what is it, Norman Rockwell, or yeah, I think it's Norman Rockwell, where he played this dude in the he was a Cyclops or Grand Cyclops in the KKK in North Carolina, and they were trying to integrate the schools, and he organized his little clan, like a legit clan, and they started terrorizing. They would do whatever they had to, more or less. Like there was one where there was a white woman that was going to vote for the integration, and when she lived by herself, I guess. She comes home to this dude in her house, and this guy just like straight up just like grabs her and starts basically saying, you're gonna vote the right way tomorrow, huh? I mean, and he sticks his finger in her, and like, it was pretty gross, man. But yeah, those guys were back in the day, but nowadays everybody goes to school with everybody else. I went to school with kids that were from Guam, Taiwan, the Philippines, Kenya, Nigeria. I mean, China. I mean, it was absolutely a who's who of kids in my class. I mean, this is in elementary school too. We're talking about 30 years ago. And they still pretend as though we all harbor this secret hatred, even though we've been living amongst each other our entire lives. We're supposed to automatically, or the fact that we have been living with them our entire lives, and that we're speaking ill of them, that means we're racist. And it's like, no, maybe we just see them as fellow Americans. Maybe we actually want to see them do well. Maybe we're just trying to help. I mean, everything is racist. They won't even consider anything else unless it's them, unless you talk to them, and then there's nuance. Oh, but I was just doing this. I was just constructively criticizing blah, blah, blah. But let someone else do it, and they're so quick to judge. It's like an instant. Oh, no way. I don't think I've seen this one yet. Or did I? No, 5 hours ago. What? Yes! Yes! Fucking A, man.
Nicholas Fuentes.
Dude!
How are you, sir?
I'm what?
Good. How are you doing? Doing good.
This is
doing good.
Dope,
Thank you very much for doing this. Thank you for traveling to do
Fuck
this. I really appreciate it.
Yes!
I've wanted to do this for a while. I felt like this was a show that was supposed to happen.
Nice.
Because I don't often feel, but I've been feeling this way for a while. So I really appreciate you doing this.
Yeah.
Me and you, we were just talking about it outside. I believe it was 2019. You did my podcast. We were like, Twitter had convinced. I think it was something like people on Twitter were like, "You'll never debate Nick the Knife or whatever," and and I was like, in my mind, I was like,
"Oh, Lotus Eaters was good."
Okay,
Yeah, Sam Rockwell. There you go.
I didn't know much about you.
Sam Rockwell.
I thought we had a really
right.
good show. We ended up not really debating.
No. It's not a black and white film. No, it was on Netflix like a couple years ago.
My show. It was like right after you got kicked off YouTube, I think.
Yes.
So that was.
It was a very under the radar movie. I forget what it was called.
Like a very broad kind of authoritarianism versus liberty type debate. I want to say it was, I think, late 2020.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Because it was right at the end, I think, of the year. We were like talking.
He ended up making best friends with a black woman.
So that
was his enemy in these meetings,
and
was his nemesis, like his opposite. She was trying to integrate the schools. Once he got to know her, he quit. He turned in his clan card. He ripped it up right in front of everybody in the
bigger audiences, more big moments
in the meeting.
And so it just kind of seemed like a thing that should happen. And also, on top of that, we are both, I don't know exactly like what percentage it would be, but I think we have a lot of overlap in our audience. Like I hear a lot of people who are like, you two are the guys that I listen to. Mm-hmm. And we both kind of had this weird thing where,
man,
like
that's
after
sad.
I had you on, again, even though you were not nearly as big as you are now, but it was still
if
like,
that's all somebody
I got all
watches
this,
is this guy
outrage.
and
I was constantly
I would
asked to
say,
denounce
I would
you,
submit that's
and then
sad.
given my personality,
That's a
I
sad
was
state
like,
of
fuck
affairs.
you. It's denounced you. Like, what? And then, of course, more recently, you know, when you were going on Candace's show, I was a topic of conversation there. So, and as I said to you when I first reached out to you about doing this, you were like, well, yeah, I mean, everyone's always asking you about me, and everyone's always asking me about you. So really, it seems like we probably should just be talking to each other. And I kind of, in a weird way, and this is something where I just feel like I know this about you. When I first thought, I was like, oh, I think we should do this. And I think we should do it in person, and I think we should do I knew that you were going to say yes. I just kind of knew, like, I knew you were going to be like,
trying to make a
let's do it.
career.
Like, so anyway, I appreciate that very much.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, let him
likewise. No,
talk.
I feel the same way.
He's your guest, right?
And
Let
we
him
both
talk.
are from the Israel critical side, and always have been, and kind of representing different factions, I think.
Yeah.
Because you, obviously, your stories, you were the Ron Paul revolution guy, libertarian, and you come at it from the perspective of the wars, that the neocons are pro-Israel, and they're driving the foreign conflict. And I come at it from the far-right Trump revolution. So it's like a generational thing. It's an ideological thing. And I'm also Catholic. You're obviously Jewish. So there's a religious element, an ideological element. And
obviously Jewish.
It's interesting how in this moment when everyone is talking about these issues, we kind of represent maybe two different sides of that, or like a nuanced difference in the Israel critical side. So it is... I said yes because I think it's going to be just a really great conversation. I think that you're super intelligent, know the relevant facts. So do I. We have some disagreements, but I think we agree on far more than we disagree about. But yeah, so I really just thought it'd be an excellent conversation.
Yeah, I think in many ways, particularly amongst young people, me and you, in a sense, represent the spectrum.
The spectrum. It sounds like they're calling each other retards or something.
There is no pro-Israel spectrum. It's like, are you like a kind of non-interventionist type, or
you know why there's no pro-Israel spectrum? Because of these guys. Because of these guys. There's no pro-Israel. There's no spectrum because they won't allow there to be a spectrum. You're either for them or you're against them. You can't just be indifferent. You know, it's both sides doing that. You got the pro-Israel side. You're either with us 100% or you're with them. Then you got these assholes that say you either think these people are the new brown shirt, that they're literally putting people in ovens and doing it production style, you know, like production line style, or you're with Israel. And it's like, bro, there is a middle ground. It's, you know, and I sit firmly in that middle ground, but they pretend as if it doesn't exist.
Identitarian, non-interventionist type. It's not really. That kind of seems to be the thing. And you know, I was I'll tell you this, okay? I'm starting by making the pettiest of points, but I promise it's in service of making a real point.
He does that a lot, though.
You know, it might come up, like you've been doing a lot of big shows lately. You just did Patrick Bet-David's show, you did Glenn Greenwald's show, several others.
That's right. I was thinking
it may come off like that's why I'm now having you on. But just to be clear, as you will back up, I had reached out to you before you had done those shows, and this is actually when I started thinking about it was when Jordan Peterson went on the Joe Rogan Experience. I believe the last time he was on, and it was a couple days after I had debated Douglas Murray, which still to this day is the most viewed show I've ever done.
Oh my God! And he's still talking about it. What a
5 million views on YouTube, and then got another 10 on Spotify,
Dude.
and then clips everywhere. I mean, we'll see if we can
let it
but
go.
I don't know about that. That was a high bar. But so there was this big thing, and it kind of became like, you know, the topic of conversation for a little bit. And so then Jordan Peterson comes in. And so I was real interested in that because, you know, obviously he's working at the Daily Wire now. And so it was like, I know this is going to come up. I'm kind of curious what his take on this is going to be. Now, I bring this up literally, I'm not trying to trash Jordan Peterson.
It sounds like it, though, my dude. It sounds like you're trying to trash him, straight up. That's all it sounds like.
Very valuable. I mean, I have a baby brother around your age.
Yeah,
not a baby, but I still call him that.
There is no situation that doesn't have nuance.
For him. Like I thought his work was great for young men.
Doesn't exist.
And obviously, I don't love so much.
They would have you believe others otherwise, though.
But so Jordan Peterson comes on.
And
I was curious what his take on the debate was going to be. I knew he was going to get asked. He kind of dodges it. He goes, "Oh, everybody involved did a really good job." Which, first of all, no one on the face of the earth thinks everyone involved did a very good job.
Right.
There are the range is insane
Wow.
Zionists who think Douglas Murray won, and everybody else. Like, there's nobody thinks he did a good job and he did a good.
Dude,
but okay,
they drop
so he
new
touched that.
live
And
streaming
then he
shit
just
on
goes on a thing
YouTube
about
the
Groypers.
week that my
No,
shit is
he mentions the
fucking
Groyper. He starts going off on
in
psychopathy
timeout. That's
and
insane.
who needs to be kept out and who can be allowed
Bastards.
in. And okay, so first of all, the obvious
Bastards.
to me, I was like, well, first off, if we're talking about psychopaths in this context, that's where we go to.
Right.
There's people who don't like Jews. I mean, like, okay, man, maybe we'll argue about this a little bit later. But like, okay, leaving that aside, that's because there's the destruction of a people. I mean, like Nikki Haley is signing bombs that are about to be dropped on human beings. And you want to have a conversation about who's a psychopath? And then also, I thought, like, to invoke you, without mentioning your name, but to mention Groypers, like, those are your fans. Like, I mean, it means your fans. So just mention the guy's name. It'd be like if you were like, there's a real problem with people who listen to Dave Smith's podcast.
Yeah.
They're like, well, then say. And so I remember just kind of thinking, like, that just seemed like really unfair. Here, you were not a participant in the thing. It wasn't even like a question about. And so it was like kind of, and then just being me, I was like, my first thought was like, Jordan Peterson should, if he's going to say that, he should sit down with Nick Fuentes. And then I was like, you know what? I should sit down with Nick. Like, it's been a while. And then it was something I just kind of kept thinking about. Anyway, it was just a bit of a rant, but that really was what got me first thinking, like, we should do something again.
Yeah, well, in that debate, I think
really
raised a
don't
lot of
like,
interesting questions, because it is
Mr.
kind of
Smith there. I think he's a jerk
It is
off.
the thing of the moment, which is that there's been this explosion of inquiry and conversation about Israel, about the Jews, conspiracy surrounding that, the nature of it. The big question I always get asked on my show is like, what is it? What is this thing that's going on?
What school?
And the reason that this is happening is because the taboo has gone away. There's a few things. There's simultaneously the censorship around the topic has dissipated, and then I think right after the taboo went away, largely because of the war in Gaza. I think people are so outraged it kind of blew the lid on that. And now that kind of is the central question of the role that these personalities play in mediating that. Because I think there's, at this point, a recognition by everybody on the whole planet. There's no denial anymore. Nobody can avoid it. Even Netanyahu's doing damage control with Shapiro. I think that was yesterday. That everybody is talking about this. Everyone's furious. Everyone does not have that conventional pro-Israel thing anymore. And now I feel like there are people like a Peterson or a Shapiro or even a Charlie Kirk, which I'm sure we'll get into, that are trying to kind of, they recognize that the reality has already changed.
Yeah.
But they are in denial in a sense, trying to negotiate like what that's going to look like, because they recognize the old consensus is gone, not coming back.
Okay.
People are not going to be pro-Israel like they were. The genie's not going back in the lamp. The proverbial lamp.
I didn't trust that stuff. I don't
But
trust
they also
that stuff
recognize
anyhow.
that is there a limiting principle?
The dude's
to the
just trying to make,
conversation? Is there something outside the Overton window? And if you've lost
trying
all
to
your credibility,
capitalize.
how can you now step in and say, okay, we were lying before, but now go no further?
Right.
And I think it's an open question where it goes from here that everybody's asking.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think there's, with a lot of those guys, I think there was just a moment that and I didn't plan on the Douglas Murray thing being that. I'm I'm a libertarian, so I'm half autistic. Like, I'm a day walker, which is why I'm the best libertarian, but I'm half that.
Day walker?
And so I just
What an
went,
idiot.
oh, dude, we're going to debate the war in Gaza and the war in Ukraine. This is
man, I
great.
didn't know
Like,
there
this is
was-
going to be a huge show. It'll be out. And I did not expect it to become a referendum on experts and the new media, partially just because it was such a bad strategy for Douglas. I mean, it was a way to avoid the debate that I think he
This
thought
guy,
he couldn't win.
he is
But
going to
it
be
wasn't-
talking about
it
that
was obviously
Douglas
not going
Murray
to work
thing
out well
for the rest of
but
his
one of the
life.
things that was kind of interesting in seeing
For the
all of
rest
these,
of his
especially
life,
kind of like
man.
Jordan Peterson coming in was interesting, because he is really, to a lot of people, like, he's almost, especially with young people, who's the core group who Israel's losing. Well, this is a guy who really shaped a lot of young people's minds. And so if anybody was kind of positioned to be able to reel them back in, it might be him. And even that didn't kind of work. And I think something fundamental to it was that it was
Yo,
like
what's
with all
up
these
there,
guys, with
DJ
Sam
Dad
Harris and
Jeans?
Jordan
What's
Peterson
shaking,
and
man?
Shapiro, your whole calling card was we have these conversations.
No, it was a
we
bad.
don't shut voices
You're
out.
absolutely
You
right.
have to win the argument. We're against cancel culture.
I was just.
and then they're like,
I agree
to
with
watch
you.
Them
I think
going
Dave
on
Smith.
these tours of like Rogan shouldn't have
I think
Daryl
he kinda
Cooper
got
on
lucky.
anymore and all this.
Douglas
You're like,
Murray,
yeah, but come on,
he
dude.
really
now, what are
made
you? You
himself
just
look
kind of
bad.
you exposed yourself for being
But then-
exactly what you.
that's
claim
why
not
I
to
mean,
be.
like,
and that is something that people
Dave
don't
Smith
get over
keeps going on
easily.
about it, and it was like,
well,
dude,
and no one's really on
he
their
kind
side
of lost
on
that debate. You didn't really win
because
it.
Douglas Murray, when he said, "Well, have you been to Gaza?"
Right?
and,
That was his-
and all these other types, the appeal to authority. It's like, in a way, this is just another chapter and kind of like a larger saga that goes back to COVID, Ukraine, Trump, even, which is that, we're led to believe that these institutions they have the authority to tell us what's going on and what to think
most
and
of
what's
us haven't been
acceptable.
to
And
any
we
of
know
these
that they
places,
lied about
and
all that,
not only
lied
that, I remember
about the
somebody
facts,
saying
the opinions,
to me one
they
time,
were probably not even in good faith.
"Must
And
I
now they
commit
wanna come out
murder
and
to
tell us,
judge it
well,
as sin?"
But like you said, we can't
No.
have that conversation. Or Daryl Cooper's too far. Or,
it's ridiculous.
They're doing the same thing to him that they did to you, where they said, "Well, you're not a historian," and it's like, okay, well,
And to be honest with you, when Douglas Murray went on there, I don't actually think he was trying to debate Dave Smith. I think he was there to he knew how many eyeballs. He's an apparatchik for Israel, and I think that was a suicide bomb. Like that was a suicide mission. He was doing the whole I forget what they call the Japanese that flew into the.
There's really
he's one of them people, the suicide bombers, kamikaze.
The right to critically
he went in there and self-destructed, man. He didn't even try to debate.
Are we literally just going to be told this is what you're allowed to think because we're the experts?
Well, it's also the other thing, dude, because I'm like, got in this.
Not only that, if you do have a source, they're still
you
just
were
a
doing your
human.
thing, I think at the time too, but for whatever reason, I got in like at not really in,
Murray's fine.
I was doing shows at Fox News for a while. There were like a few particular hosts.
He's
who
got
were
it
really
made
good
like
to
the
me
Democrats have it
really
made,
was
where
like
they just fail
Kennedy
upwards. That's
and,
Murray. He's got a golden parachute.
She had a libertarian show there,
they're
so
gonna take care of
made
their boy.
sense. And then Greg Gutfeld used to put me on. Tom Shalhoub used to put me on.
And I used to really like
even in the day. And then I've done a bunch of their shows.
He was
since.
very
erudite.
erudite,
One of the things that
very
bugs
well
me about the whole
spoken,
conversation
well
too is
read.
look, I'm not saying there's a lot of garbage online. So I'm not like
he started
defending,
getting emotional.
There's dumb political commentators online.
That's
But
it.
when you're talking about like the elite level, or like I'm just saying, objectively speaking, I used to do those panels. If you go back and look at any of the panels I was on, you're out there somewhere. It's just always me carving everybody up.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know anything.
No,
like it was, dude. Me and you are
That's
compared
bullshit.
to the old guard, elite level. Like they maybe would occasionally get someone in there. Occasionally you'd have Pat Buchanan on a segment. You'd have someone who like Ron Paul, or someone who really knew what they were talking about. But like every day on cable news. So the idea of being like, well, you're not an expert. Daryl Cooper's not an expert. Do you know what you're hearing on cable news? Do you know how much more Daryl Cooper knows than 99 point?
Nobody is an expert, really. It's the people that we listen to are the people that spend the most time on this, that spend the most time watching what's going on. Like I remember my dad used to watch that show, The McLaughlin Report, on Sundays on PBS, and it would have Pat Buchanan and a few other. I mean, it was an old codger show for sure, old geezer show. But those guys had been talking about politics for like 60 years. And, you don't question those people's, they've been around, they know more than you do. These guys, it's not hard to question these guys. They haven't been around that long, and they don't really sound all that smart. And I've seen Dave Smith. I've seen him get crushed. To my mind, the people that win debates are the people that handle the debate in a more objective and don't get emotional. If you get emotional, you lose. Dave Smith gets emotional. Myron Gaines gets emotional, and now Douglas Murray does. It's
99% of people talking about the topic. So there was something about that really bugged me. But I also think, specifically with
it looks like he's only going to let
Jordan
Nick
Peterson
talk for like.
I just thought it was like
a couple minutes here,
dude. You're talking about a young man. You're talking about a following of young people. I thought your whole thing was like sticking up for them, not calling them the tetrad of evil or something like that.
Yeah.
And not like as if you've done something unforgivable that you are now. It's like I thought like it just seems like
I don't like Peterson
okay,
anymore
so
either.
then if you're saying that Nick Fuentes is leading these young men down the wrong path, well then okay, maybe they could use some Jordan Peterson in their life then, right?
Right.
Like what? Maybe you should take that. Maybe it's really important. I thought you're supposed to speak up for the voiceless and get all emotional and all that. Like where did all that shit go? All of a sudden, there's one thing that's like a subject you're not allowed to talk about, and I just think that's bullshit.
Yeah, well, and Jordan, he even took it a step further. I don't know if you saw his tweets about me.
You know,
he called me a
I'd have to
rat.
agree with you there,
He
DJ
said Nick
Dad.
Fuentes is a rat, and then he came back and amended it and
I
said,
think I
"No,
would
wait,
have
he's
to
not a
agree with
rat
you on
because
that."
rats are odious by their nature."
And-
he said, "Nick chooses to be a rat. He's lower than rat." And it's
Lately,
like-
you know, like the past week, I've been doing a lot of those debates. The Oxford, we did the Bill Buckley versus James Baldwin debate from the 60s, the Oxford debate. Frickin' superb, man. Superb debates. You know, everybody brings their A game, they're dressed sharp, you know, all squared away. Nobody fucks around, nobody like talks over each other, and the crowd has a small input, and I do like that.
And
Well
by the
said,
way, isn't
well
his
said.
also his whole thing like about totalitarianism and like dehumanizing people? And I said to him, I really was more just like astounded, like you said, because he is different than the others. That's like he's always been different. Shapiro's like an insane Zionist,
Yeah.
like operative of Israel, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
But Peterson, like you
Me
said,
too.
he really was.
He didn't used to,
very
but-
influential for young men, and I know that because I was one of them at one point, and I had close friends that loved his Bible lecture series, his podcast Maps of Meaning, which was his original book.
Pulled a lot of young kids away from atheism.
Major, and towards
Damn sure
Christianity
did.
and towards conservatism and all of it. And you're right, his claim to fame was that he was supposed to be this like lodestar for the disaffected young men of the
Right.
Trump generation. And who represents that more than me? I'm kind of like that archetypal guy leading those people. And I agree, if
The
he's
way the
got some issue with
sub-100
me,
IQ
first of
people
all,
do.
why not just call me out? It's this weird like thing that the left does where they say,
You
we
know,
don't want to platform
it's
him.
funny
We don't
because
want to
you
give him
that's basically what I was just getting at. You know, it's the guy who gets the most emotional that loses, but that's the guy that gets the loudest. To my mind, though, that's the guy that loses. If you have to start raising your voice, you've lost. That means your words aren't hitting.
Shin. But like you say, what then happened to that whole deal where it's like, it's a free marketplace. We have to just talk or else we'll fight. We have to, have this marketplace. So there's just layers of hypocrisy and no one's buying. Nobody's buying into that nonsense. And it's sad because I think he lost a lot of credibility by doing that.
I completely agree. And I agree it's sad. And I
It
think,
is
and
sad
I'm not
when
saying this
somebody
again to pick on Jordan
damages
Peterson,
their
just like I think
reputation that you
he's an
like.
important figure. It's an important topic, and
because I did like
it's
him.
And this kind of goes to the heart of back in the before we ever met. I mean, we just met in person for the first time, but before I ever had you on my show, I had talked to some of the alt-right guys. Like I had Christopher Cantwell on my show, I think a couple times, and I had Richard Spencer on, and I had like some of those guys, and people
I don't
at
like
the
the guy,
time,
but it
was
shows
like
Smith
it was a
has
somewhat
a few
risky move. It was still in the world where you're like, I don't want to get my channel banned and stuff like that. At least at the moment, that feels a little bit safer. But one of the reasons why I liked talking to those guys, or one of the reasons why I did the shows with them, was that, well, first of all, I did kind of find the ideas interesting. And I'm interested in the ideas. That's why we do these things. That's why we do what we do. And there was also, I guess I've always thought there was, from my perspective as like a libertarian, but a right-wing libertarian, I think. And at least comparatively speaking, I always thought that there was this weird, I used to talk about this way back in the day when I in 2012 I was doing podcasts. No one was listening, but I was doing podcasts, and I used to talk about this. This is totally in the it was before wokeism really became a thing, and then of course before the reaction to wokeism became a thing. But even back in 2012, I used to always say that the president of the United States could drop a bomb on a third world country on a wedding and kill 70 people, and then the same day he could say the blacks instead of African Americans, and the latter would be a bigger scandal than the prior. And there's something fundamentally wrong with that.
I didn't know where he was going with that.
That's a really
he's got a
sick
good
thing
point
about
about
your
that.
society.
Yeah,
and
it was
there is
gross.
This almost and I think has been for my entire lifetime, maybe before that probably, that there's almost this unspoken cultural value that clearly is a left-wing value that puts at the absolute top of the hierarchy of outrages bigotry. Like bigotry is supposed to be up here at the absolute. That's the worst thing in the world that you can be. When in fact, like that is just not my moral outlook on the world. Yeah, bigotry is something we all have in excess. I think it's bad, but there's much worse things than that. And one of the things that I always found very interesting was that the alt-right guys were really anti-war. And this also for you and the Groyp was very anti-war. And so to me, in my world, like, war is really a much worse thing than racism. I'm not sure how there's a counter argument to that, although we treat it like war is that's just policy, and this is the worst thing you can do.
Racism has to be the ultimate sin.
And so, in fact, with the Jordan Peterson,
that's how they got all their
talk about psychopaths,
political power.
You were on record saying, "Give them hell." That was your response. And for the guy who talks about hell all the time,
yeah, right.
There's you don't think hell it really exists? It does. You haven't met enough. Yeah, go to Gaza. Hell does exist. You said give them hell, and that's exactly what they got. Like, so maybe examine yourself before you're saying, oh, but he said a thing about the Jews, so he's the dark tetrad. But then it just seemed to me on top of that. So that's like my worldview. Like, I don't actually think bigotry is the worst thing. I think it can be bad, but I don't think it's the worst thing. But then even from, like, say, a liberal worldview, like, isn't, like, Daryl Davis, like, the big hero story? And I'm not, like, claiming that that's what I'm doing with you. It's not.
Right.
But, like, the idea of, like, you're like, even the guy who you say is the famous guy who, like, converted all the Klansmen, well, he did it by talking to him and being decent. Just be cool. That's like rule number one.
It's true.
Like always, and that always seems so obvious to me, particularly as a Jewish person, but I just like as a Jew, I'd say that. But that you're just like, oh, there's these people who hate Jews. I was like, well, I should probably be cool. Because it's kind of hard for people to hate someone who's cool to them. And it's just so weird to me that everybody else's opinion is like, no, this is the one thing that's unacceptable, bigotry.
Right. Bigotry.
The government just passed a law that says they can detain you without charges, whatever. But like, no one's being a bigot about it, right? They're doing it to whites and blacks equally. Like, okay. And then number two, like, what is this thing that we ought to shut people out of the conversation? It seems so counterproductive and stupid.
Well, and it's not even just bigotry. In particular, it's words. It's not like you even have to do a bigoted
My
thing,
parents,
like you beat up
said
a black
the same
person
thing about
for
Florida
being black, or
in the
discriminate
80s,
actively.
Or 70s and 80s.
It's like if you have said something that sounds racist, is racist, that is worse than murder, war, etc. And that was kind of like a phenomenon this summer because I was so outspoken against the war in Gaza, and the clips were going around on TikTok and Instagram, and a lot of liberals are saying, wait a second. Even he is saying this is evil. This is a guy we're supposed to hate. Maybe the broken clock is right twice a day. And I was on my show reminding people
it should stick with you, my dude. Something like that with a child, like, whoa, man. You're talking about little kids and stuff that haven't even, they're not even at the point where they can do bad things, really.
Maybe I'm
not
racist.
Mean it anyway.
Maybe we disagree on issues of race. But I'm against murder. I'm against genocide. And like you said, is that not
that is wild.
The actual moral paradigm?
No
is
joke,
like
that's wild.
Killing, war, famine. Are these things not the real evils? And maybe bigotry is somewhere further away from that, and saying things that might be bigoted further even still from that. And we live in a society now where it seems like if you have ever uttered anything that's bad, it haunts you.
Yeah.
It's like you look at my Wikipedia page, and it's like he's a racist, sexist, homophobe, Islamophobe. In 2018, he said this. In 2020,
you know how they just slap you with a label,
and I go on shows
and there
in
it
the news
stays
reports.
for the rest
they list
of your
like
life
things I have
they don't
said.
want
like
to know about you.
I talk 3 hours a day for a living for 10 years.
They label you, and then they push you up. No, we don't have to think about him anymore.
Or offensive.
That's what they did to Kirk.
Doesn't that kind of go with the territory of freedom of conscience? If we can think, should we not be able to speak? And if we speak, can we not be wrong?
Yeah.
Can we not be funny? Can we not be insensitive or bombastic? And I guess this gets to something
my dad
about...
says the same damn thing.
Because you think, well, society shouldn't
and
be
you know
this
something?
way, but why is it this way? People are
It certainly
hanged
colored
by
the
their
way he
words
lived the rest of his life.
This is like, these are
As
tools
I'm
of
sure
reputational destruction. They don't like where you're
Colored
pointed.
everybody in the South,
So then they
the way
look
they
for
live their
things
life.
that are going to hurt people's feelings and say, oh, well, you shouldn't listen to this guy because he said this, and I bet you don't like how that sounds, huh? Because when you look at, I brought this up on PBD.
That's
Ben
exactly
Shapiro,
what they do.
in the year 2000, I think, wrote an article about ethnic cleansing. It said transfer is not a dirty word. And he's arguing for literal ethnic cleansing. Now, I have never argued anything close to that. I've never made the argument that we should ethnically cleanse blacks from the United States.
Right,
but if I did, I'd be hanged by that forever. Is Shapiro. Why and why not? He is not reminded of that every time he goes around, not because he apologized for it 20 years later, but because he has all the correct opinions.
Exactly.
He's not a target.
Exactly.
He's got backing. And so that kind of tells us that, and by
It's
the
not
way, the same applies
what you
to
say,
all
it's
other
who you
kinds
know.
of
Hey, what's going on there, Tucky Bucky?
If
How
we
you
want to
doing,
have an
man?
open society, and it's ironic coming from me, but we do need
Libertarian
to have,
Nick Fuentes.
Yeah, sort of. It's like you do need some level of tolerance, actually, to inoculate yourself from using reputational destruction for political control, because that's what I've come to realize about it.
Dude, you're 100% right. Dude, I used to talk about this all the time because, you know, as you mentioned, I was a big Ron Paul supporter.
How come
when he was
nobody
running for president.
ever
When he was
chats
running
on
for president,
Pick?
which is looking back at it now in 2025 is so goddamn funny. But they'd always bring up the racist Ron Paul newsletters. The racist
see y'all over
newsletters.
there
By
on
the way,
Kick. I see
if you
y'all
look at that, it
watching.
was so tame compared to like anything.
I know you're
Like, I
out
mean,
there.
it was literally like, I think one of the things was they said one guy in the newsletter said the LA riots only stopped because they needed their welfare check or something.
Oh man, I'm wrong.
Anyway, so you're just and they would
I like Nick's laugh. Not gonna lie, he has a good laugh.
To try to paint him as a hater of some sort, a dude who does not have like a hateful, is just like a Christian baby doctor who's been married to the same woman for 60-something years. Like just and they would try to pull that up, and then you'd notice like, oh, okay, but like, you know, you look at the things Joe Biden has said in his day, look at things Hillary Clinton has said, look at all
right.
no, they don't ever get hit for that. In fact, the greatest libertarian theorist of all time, Murray Rothbard, in one of his most controversial articles, and we talked about this, I think, the first time we podcasted together, but
You know, the
he wrote
same
this thing
shit
about-
happened, like what, just a week ago, Kamala Harris was talking about she didn't take Pete Buttigieg because he was a homosexual, and next thing you know, all she has to do is say, no, I didn't mean that. And because she has all the right opinions, nobody says one thing about it. If Donald Trump had said that, they would have hung him by his nutsack.
Duke, and he was making the point how they're like, well, why is it that they hate David Duke so much? And I go, oh, you say because he used to be in the Klan? And I go, well, Robert Byrd, the line of the Senate,
Robert
he used to be in
Byrd.
the Klan. No one has a problem with that. And so you realize, yes, this is you make
You're
the
on their
rules
team.
so vague and so narrow that they apply to everyone, and then you choose who's going to get hit. And who always happens to get hit? Very coincidentally, the people who don't support Israel and the permanent warfare state.
Yep.
Always. It's even like with the woke right term. You know, the definition they're working off of is you awoken to something. That makes you woke. And by the way, here's a list of all the woke right people, and they completely coincidentally happen to be all of the right wingers who don't support Israel and don't support the warfare state. Like, it's always what it is.
No,
It's
no,
the
I'm not.
one
You,
common-
why,
and
you
that's-
can't hear
that's
it?
It's a real problem.
Or you
of the
can't
kind
hear
of
me
a
very well?
racist
There,
thing
Mr. Jeans?
being what you ruin people over. Because again, we're
Switch
all
to a
little
boom
bit
mic
racist,
this
and
time.
people
so
just don't want to admit it.
I
But
just
that's
need to
one
be a
thing
little bit
growing
more
up in New York City,
mindful
you
where
learn
I'm
to realize
talking through.
Different people. It's not racism isn't something that belongs to old white men. It's something that every group has, and actually minorities in this country are quite willing to
Everybody in the
open about
world
it, which is
has a
something
degree
that
of
is, you know,
racism.
not disgusted like liberal
Humans are
academia,
made with an
but, like,
in-group,
you go over to
out-group
like your Asian
preference.
friend's
They're
house, and
an
his
in-group
dad
preference.
will tell you exactly how black people are, how Latino people are, how white people are. Anyway, so you know, even when I was talking to those alt-right guys back in the day, and part of the reason, and I
Glad to
never,
hear
you know, I did always find the conversations interesting. But although I didn't, I mean, I always thought like the ethno-state thing was just like a retarded non-starter of like a.
I don't think they're
you're gonna turn
really
America into it.
I
Like,
guess
what is
unless
it?
China, but I
guess-
don't really think
I don't wanna say this
ethno-states
the right
even
way, 'cause I think
exist.
People will judge me for saying this, but in some ways, I kind of thought that the alt-right, and then in some ways the Groypers, in a way, they were the most honest expression of the Trump moment.
Yeah.
Because I think there's through years of kind of like political correctness, the post-war consensus, like all of these things, it's almost like the older generation was there was an inability to just say it because it was perceived as racist in order to say it. So there's always code words. It's like we have too much illegal immigration. We have too much of the we need and
euphemisms.
Really, what the issue was about was that America was being transformed racially. I mean, that it was being transformed from
and anybody who spoke
white
up
country,
about
which
it,
it's always been.
They got
its entire history, and that's being
they
changed.
got
And it just seems
tossed
to me that, like,
or thrown off
it's
their
pretty obvious
hill as a racist. Immediately.
If you whatever, like
racist.
The alt-right guys all used to say, if you went to Italy and said, "Hey, we have some demographic projections. This place is going to be 90% French in a few years. Isn't that wonderful?" I think most of them would go, "No, it's not wonderful because we want this to be Italy." And so
we like that everybody
you have this
can speak
drastic
with us.
change that was completely forced on the American. There was never a choice. There was never a referendum on like, should America become a majority minority country? And that referendum wouldn't have done too good in 1960. Like if you had asked those people, or 65, whenever the bill was, if you had asked those people,
what a
scumbag. Everybody, including all the black people, would have been like, "No, we don't."
Yeah, that's how they feel to this day.
Voting against it. This happened against the will of the Americans, and during that, it's not even like they're like, "Hey, the people never asked for this, but we're transforming your society anyway. But we're gonna be really cool about it." They didn't even throw that last one in there. They went, "You didn't ask for this. It's happening anyway, and fuck you and everything you hold dear. And also, your son's a girl." Like it's like on every level, and I think that was guaranteed to create a pushback, and I think it's crazy to not engage with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. That's how I interpreted the Trump revolution. When I was 18 and Trump won the election, and by we, I mean me and my followers at the time, or whoever I considered a fellow traveler, we viewed the Trump revolution as an implicit white identitarian movement. And that is what was loaded behind every slogan. Make America great again. Okay,
we all know what you're talking about.
Was it great?
About the
15 years ago, or are you talking about like the 80s? And what was America like in the 80s? It was a different color, it was a different flavor. We're going to say Merry Christmas again. Okay, what does that mean? Who doesn't say Merry Christmas?
Right.
Liberals and all these people that practice different religions, Muslims and Jews for that matter, although Trump was always pro-Israel.
Always.
And we saw Trump as basically just an implicit expression of that, and over time would become more explicit as the changes became sort of ignorable, the demographic changes, the cultural changes. And I do agree with your point, because as someone like myself, these were the conversations I was having, as maybe like a higher IQ. Obviously, I'm not just like a resentful, angry white man who doesn't like change. I was looking at this and saying, like you said before, it's not maybe desirable that America changes.
When somebody doesn't say Merry Christmas, you already know what the deal
is. It is happening. It, in some sense, has happened. And as maybe a young person, though, and being precocious and also impulsive and immature, I was trying to find the vocabulary and language to talk about these things. And I was interested in opinions on this. And I did talk to people at the time who were willing to engage with me. They were few and far between. And they would say, is it really practical, an ethno-state? And clearly there's going to be diversity, but how are we going to live with that? How can we preserve some semblance of our way of life? And I feel like if there was more of a recognition that we deserve that we deserve engagement, a conversation, recognition, that our grievances are valid, that it's okay to not be okay with the things that are happening.
Hell yeah, they're valid.
Maybe the movement would have taken a different direction, or maybe it wouldn't be so much rage and conflict and division. But it's like you said, people were told, this is the way it's going to be. Your neighborhood is destroyed. It's irreversibly changed. If you have a problem with that,
if you don't like it, yeah, you're a bad person.
If that makes you angry, we're just going to take away your voice. And if you riot, then we're just going to throw you in jail and ruin your life. And it was just kind of like, I said this on my show, doubling down, always doubling down, ignoring intolerance. I know that's like trite at this point, but ironically, the proponents of tolerance were intolerant of anyone that wasn't on board and anyone that didn't look like the new American they wanted to make. And I think that in some sense, maybe my ascendancy in the past couple of years as well, and this is accompanied by and maybe caused it, the Overton window moving to the right on everything, on race, on Israel, on crime, on immigration. Now that people are kind of like banging on the door of the liberal elite saying,
They
like,
don't have
get
much
out.
of a choice.
Now they're willing to have the conversation. Now they're saying, all right. Okay,
Yeah,
maybe
we'll
we
talk
can talk
about it.
turning some of this stuff back. And I've said on my show, I just hope this is the moment when there's introspection and we do talk and we find a resolution, because my fear is that we blow right past that and the worst elements with the worst impulses, because they are vindicated in some sense, are going to take control of this, and it is going to be a lot of populist anger, real resentment, real rage, real hatred, cruelty, because I think that's a distinct
Because we
possibility.
haven't had a democracy for the
I'm
last
glad you
50
say
or
that,
60
and,
years,
I
hardly.
completely agree with you, and I think it's a moment that there should be introspection for everybody, like myself included.
It's
You
ridiculous.
and your audience included, and also those liberals. I mean, because it's just, like, and perhaps part of this perspective is just that I'm older than you. Not that I don't need to like play that as a card, but my point of reference. Like, I was born in the 1980s, and so I was born in '83. I grew up in the '80s and '90s, and this was a different country back then, And I think one of the things that's been interesting, I'm really interested to get your point of view on this. One of the things that's been interesting for me about, say, like the cultural transformation, the most recent one that we've lived through, with the woke insanity being rolled back and the censorship being rolled back, which are very related, I think. And I think there's certain things you could point to that were like big moments. Like, I think the Bud Light and the Target campaigns were like a big moment. Like, it was one of the first times that like big corporations got a black eye over this. And even if they gain that money back in their stock, it's like you lose billions of dollars. That starts getting people thinking about this stuff. And then obviously Elon buying Twitter, and then just kind of Zuckerberg wanting to be cool or whatever it is exactly. The government pressure being taken off. I don't know if we know exactly what it is, but like but one of the things that's been interesting is, like, I think from people like my perspective, being 42, is that I think a lot of us were like, oh, good. Like, we can go back to not having everything so racialized and having everything so, like, just. I just think that stuff's not good. And then, that is not at all what's happened. And in fact, I think, like, it's been kicked into higher gear. And one of the things I've been thinking about a lot with that is that, it's probably just from my perspective, being my age, it's much easier for me to go, all right, let's just go back to like what the before time, when before this woke insanity, things weren't that crazy, at least culturally. Whereas I think your audience, and part of mine, but more so your audience, which is younger, naturally, they lived through it in a different way than I ever did, and they're, you think about like that, what was the kid's name? Sandman, Nicholas Sandman.
Oh, yeah,
the
Nick
guy, they
Sandman.
tried to ruin this kid's life for the crime of being an angel. I mean, could not, dude, Nick. Man, I am lucky that there wasn't social media or podcasting or any or like shit when I was a kid. But I remember saying on that shit, man, if me and my friends, when we were teenagers, if those black Israelites, because we were just little fucking hooligans from Brooklyn, like we were like, if they had come up and started talking all that shit to us, and the neighbor, you guys are colonizers, we would have immediately been like, that's right, bitch. Yeah, we took your shit, didn't we? Right. Oh yeah, you raped our women. Oh, and you didn't do shit. Like, we would have just immediately started talking shit back to them. It would have probably been a fight. This kid does nothing. Just a Catholic kid who's like in there for a ride, so he just smiles. He just stands there and smiles. And they tried to ruin his life over that. And I think, for a lot of people that you talk to, these are like, I'm not saying they were black people growing up in the Jim Crow South, but they really did come up under a system that was overtly bigoted against them. Where it was like, hey, it is the law of the land that you will be denied opportunities. We're looking to put women and people of color and everything except you, straight white man. We're looking at everything else. Your university hates your guts. Hollywood hates your guts. The media, the political class. And
if people want to try and
it's a big ask after all of that.
Pretend as though white people treated black people as poorly as Democrats treat Republicans today. I'm not so sure that that's true. Yeah, people got lynched back in the day. Well, people are getting shot today. And segregation was separate but equal. White people weren't going to those schools and terrorizing them and attacking them. They got to live their lives. I mean, a lot of them, I'm not going to say, people did shitty stuff back then, but for the most part, they got to live their lives just like everybody else. And to hear him say that just pisses me off. He's acting as if people in the 60s were monsters or something.
When you get, the leg up to go, can you be cool now? And so I understand where that's a tough thing, to ask. At the same time, I do think, as you mentioned, we're not going to live in a white ethno state. The 1960, we can't go back to 1965 and undo the Immigration Act. And this is going to be a multiracial society of some sort. And we ought to think about, okay, how do we move forward in a way that's conducive to peace and prosperity, which is kind of what we all on some level want.
Yeah, it's a difficult question because I guess it comes down to multiracialism itself, because we do live in different America. There was, I'm told, the consensus in the 90s and the early noughts where people describe race relations as generally good. And, we could talk about why that is. I mean, people say that that's only after there was this intense anti-crime intervention, the crime bill and Giuliani and stop and frisk and all that. But people say things were pretty good. But America was also a lot less diverse. And so we've undergone this political transformation. And on the other side of it, we do have a much different America. And the question is, now that we really do have these large groups of different races in the country, can there be a brand new political order that's based on understanding? And it comes down to the question of that in itself. And to me, all these little things that they were talking about 20 years ago or 10 years ago, representation, microaggressions, opportunity, it's really about power. That's ultimately what it comes down to. It's about who will predominate, who will be preeminent. When you're talking about, for example, DEI, that's saying we want the spots at Harvard because you know who is scouting Harvard talent? The biggest corporations, law firms. And we want to be in the law firms. We want to be on the boards of the biggest companies because we want power.
Right.
And we want power to help ourselves. We want that for Black people. We want that for Hispanics, for Asians. Yep. And so it does come down ultimately to power sharing. And power sharing and even wealth sharing, it comes down to the distribution or allocation of resources. It's contentious because whites are necessarily losing power. They used to have all of it, and now they're sharing it. Now they're going to have half of it or a quarter of it. And what's more is if another group has power over you, there's an inherent suspicion because it's well, this guy's not really looking out for me because he doesn't look like me and he didn't come from where I came from and he's not like me. And the problem with this is after there's so much conflict, the non-whites don't trust whites. And the whites are rightly skeptical of the non-whites because the non-whites seem to have license to hate whites. Non-whites have inherent distrust, basically a veiled hatred and resentment. And they feel completely able to express that. And so
they feel no shame.
The fundamental question is how now do the races share power
on a train,
in a way that isn't contentious? How do we find an understanding? And I don't know if that's even possible because the concern from the alt-right was always, in particular in a democracy, in an open society, when politics gets racialized, it basically just becomes like a race war. Yeah. It turns into a soft form of a racial war. And, now they're saying woke right. I think the reason they're doing that,
trying to keep us
and
in
they
line.
Want to, just kind of get rid of identity politics and find a consensus is because they want for the whites now not to fight the non-whites. They want a situation where, like you said, we're going to have happy liberal whites, blacks, Hispanics, Asians all living together. I just don't know how possible that is at this point. And that's where people start to talk about, can we disintegrate? We were forcibly integrated with immigration and after the Civil Rights Act.
Sure we can.
Can we now go our separate ways? I don't know that that's actually even a good thing, though. I don't know that that's even a good answer. But I would say where it starts is just with honesty. Ultimately, there's got to be a recognition that
we're not getting
there are legitimate grievances on both sides, and there are illegitimate grievances.
Right.
there are legitimate voices expressing those grievances that actually, because I said this on the Charlie Kirk show, after Charlie got shot, I think there was a real threat of like war. I think there still is, because left-wingers are shooting people and blowing stuff up, and eventually a right-winger is going to retaliate, and then is it going to be like the 60s and 70s? That's a question. But I said on my show after Charlie died, the important thing is, let's get a new consensus of people that don't want that, that don't want war, that don't want their opponents to die, that don't want to murder each other. I said, I'm Christian. I don't believe in murder. I don't believe in revenge. I said, and not all people are Christian, and not all Christians believe that, actually. And so I think moving forward, there needs to be an uncomfortable coming together of people that have grievances, legitimate grievances with each other, but who both want harmony, want to live in peace, don't want bloodshed, leaders from both sides to come together. But I'm not optimistic. I think that the most cynical, calculating people rise to the top. They will incite and exploit the divisions and try to vie for control. And I think, conflict is more likely than peace at this point.
Yeah, it's very hard. It's very hard to keep those because it's so easy. It's so easy, And by the way, just because you mentioned it, and I did say this publicly a bunch, but I really did appreciate your episode after Charlie Kirk. Thank you for that. So it was. It reminds. I was on Piers Morgan debating that Brandon Tatum, the cop guy. That was what he was. He said I was a terrible person for giving you credit for that show, and then his whole argument was like, he's like, Nick is disingenuous. Like he doesn't mean that, and it's just like. Whatever. I didn't even spend that much time on it in the thing, but it was just funny. It was in my head. I was like, wait, so in your worldview, Nick is this disingenuous, he's the leading neo-Nazi. It's like, okay, so the leading neo-Nazi is calling for peace? Is that not, could we at least acknowledge that's preferable to the other outcome? But on the broader topic, I agree with your assessment, unfortunately, that it's kind of less likely that this has a positive outcome than a negative one. But I do think that, I look at it like I was born in 1983, which, to me does not feel like that long ago. I still feel like you, man, except my knees. My knees really don't feel like you. But, so I was born in 1983. This is 20 years, less than 20 years, 19 years after the Civil Rights Act, right? So it's it kind of does make sense in a way that perhaps there was a different outlook only 20 years after the Civil Rights, and now it's 2025. This is actually quite a bit further. This is 60 years after the Civil Rights Act now. And I do think that, in order to move forward, the only way to do this would be to declare, man, I hate saying this word, but actual equality of some sense. It would actually have to be look, nobody's getting discriminated against under the law. Either nobody has a right to have their special, their group interest, their group idea, or everybody gets to do it. Now, I think the way it worked, when I was a kid, it's almost like there was a gentleman's agreement. And there was a gentleman's agreement where it was kind of like, look, we know bad things happened to minorities in this country in the past. And so we're not going to say, some of the things that we obviously know. And we'll even allow you to say a little bit about us. And that was kind of the gentleman's agreement. And at a certain point, it was the progressive left particularly just broke this gentleman's agreement. And they were like, well, no, we're going to say everything that we want to say. And then eventually I feel like, the young white men were kind of like, okay, well then screw it. So then there's no gentleman's agreement anymore.
Right.
And, I remember, I remember, I'm sure you saw this when Scott Adams had that comment a couple years ago, I guess it was, that went super viral. Scott Adams, who's unfortunately is, I think, very sick these days. Me and him have argued a few times on Twitter, but I was sad to hear that. But he said the thing, he was like, my advice to white people is just don't be around blacks. Just move away, move to a different neighborhood where they're not there. And I remember first hearing that and going yo, that's fucked up, dude. Yeah. And then the second after I went, oh, that's fucked up, I went, this is exactly what I did. That is exactly what I did. I remember me and my wife were looking at the town that we ultimately moved to, and it's just there was a grading thing, when you look at towns and they're schools, A+, this, A+, this, A+, crime, A+, this, A+, and they go diversity, D-. And I was like, cool. And it's not I don't care, but it's those other things are important to me.
Right,
and they do seem to be attached to this one. And so it's I think in order to kind of put this fire out, you would have to there would have to be some type of system where it's like, look, like white people are they can't be discriminated against under the law, and they can't be discriminated against in other ways either. And they have to also be allowed to say what they want to say. And to your point, there are legitimate grievances that black people have. I mean, there is no, and this is my own bias, I guess, but much of it doing with government policy is almost everything that's handed to them from the state is absolute garbage, and their schools are really bad, and there's like legitimate grievances there. I also think like welfare has done enormous damage. But you kind of can't just blame all your problems on white people and racism. I mean, that actually is not really what's holding black people back in this country. And I think we have to be honest about that if we don't want things to go in an ugly direction.
Yeah, well, and I would say